Right, so guys, I can't tell you how excited I've been about this particular live video. I'm here with a good friend, and I'm gonna also say mentor because Jerry Huffaker's been a part of our martial arts school for a long time. We'll get into that in a minute. But this guy is he's just like a walking book of wisdom, man. And I get so much joy out of spending time with him. And so, been super excited about this live video. So we have Jerry Huffaker, taxidermist, third-degree black belt, soon to be, I hope, fourth-degree black belt. We're working on that. I'm nudging him along. There was some public accountability. I'm pushing, right? That's just what I do. But we're here with you, man. So how are you doing, Mr. J?
I'm doing great.
Good. I don't know if I can bear the stress of this guy looking over my shoulder.
It might be unbearable.
It's going to be very awesome today, guys. We didn't practice a single one of those before it started. We're on track. All right. So we're in Mr. Jerry's taxidermy office. Again, known him for years. He's been training with us for a really long time. And I just wanted to share some of his wisdom. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is you're in taxidermy. This is what you do for a living. And I knew early on you had another business going as well. But what got you started in this? How did this come about?
Well, the way that we got started in this business was I had a lawn maintenance business in college, actually right out of high school.
Right.
It was very successful. For me it was, in my terms, and we trimmed trees in the winter and that sort of thing, and I just did not enjoy the tree trimming part of the business in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. And as a thought, being a hunter and an outdoorsman and having an interest and having a little bit of artistic abilities and talents in the eye for things, I thought I might get into the taxidermy industry and just see if that could be like an off-season business to counter the lawn maintenance business. And what ended up happening is I didn't realize how much of a demand for somebody reputable there was in this area for a taxidermist.
Right.
And it exploded. I had a full load of work the very first year I opened the doors.
Right.
And from that point, what we did was, Beth and I, we let the taxidermy business grow, and I reduced the landscape maintenance business as we went along.
Right.
And eventually ended up full-time in this business.
Right. Kind of phase that out and phase this in as this grew.
And I realized I kind of had a talent for it.
Right.
And,
talent, man. You guys have no idea, right?
And I worked really hard to advance that and get better at it.
Right.
I worked and eventually evolved into competitions and improved our work to where we could get a high-end clientele, and we've made a living now for about 32 years.
32 years.
And this fall was 32 years.
Right. So speaking of that, I want to get sidetracked, but so many things are going in my head. So how long have you been married?
34 years.
34 years. Mm-hmm. Guys, married like a champ right here. This guy is like the man. I have so much respect for him. So when he said he had some talent, and I don't want to misquote, but he got into some competitions with taxidermy, state level competitions, then national level competitions, and even beyond that, right?
In the world, yeah.
In the world. Mm-hmm. And how many world titles have you won?
Well, I've won one best in the world. They call it best in the world. Actually, the piece wins it.
Right.
And of course, you are declared a world champion if your piece wins. So best in the world, and I won second best in the world.
Second, right.
So,
guys, that's huge. The taxidermy conventions that you tell me about are massive, massive events, and people come literally from around the world. So I'm sitting in a room, man. There's like Cape buffalo from Africa, zebras. There's all kinds of stuff. So when this guy, right out here in the middle of West Texas, with his shop right at his house, tells you that he found a talent, I can't tell you enough. The talent is huge. So if you need taxidermy, by the way, we can hook you up. So in your industry, just can you share maybe a challenge or two you faced in the industry?
yeah, the challenge in this industry, one of the biggest difficulties that everyone has, young and old, is this business is labor intensive.
Right.
It's long, hard hours in your shops. We live in these, what I call caves.
Right.
We all live in these.
I think that's appropriate with this guy looking over my shoulder. In the cave.
And it's very difficult for people to accept the fact that if you're going to make a good living as a taxidermist, minimum 50 hours a week.
Right.
Minimum.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm seriously minimum.
Right.
There are many, many weeks that I've spent 70 plus hours in the shop
Right.
to make the kind of living I want to make.
Right.
And in these times, sometimes that's not acceptable, because we're in a time now when 35 hours is full time.
Right.
And just like my parents, for example, 35 hours was Wednesday,
Right.
quitting time.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I was raised, so it hasn't been that much of a burden for me.
Right.
Because
It's kind of programmed
I
in.
grew up in a
Yeah.
working environment.
Right.
But that's one of the most difficult things to deal with. It is labor intensive.
Right.
It takes up your time in your life, and you have to really learn how to utilize your time in better ways and not waste a lot of time, because you're going to have to spend a lot of time in your shop to make a good living.
Absolutely. So labor intensive, a minimum of probably 50 hours a week of good, solid, hard work. And, I don't want to take anything away from what you do or what you've done, but I would venture to say to be successful in any business, that's going to be true. And not maybe the labor intensive piece as much, but the willingness to put in the time and the work. I know for us in the martial arts industry, we do the same. We put in a lot of hours. We're up before daylight, home after dark, and it's long hours, lots of days. And so I absolutely get that. And I would venture out there to say that in any business, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to be willing to be dedicated to that. But I think you appear to me to be super passionate about your work. You seem to love what you do. So it's not, it's not really hard for you to spend that time, because it's something you enjoy, right?
Not really. There's good and bad days.
Right.
There's days when I'm the best in the world, and there's days when I'm not the best in the world.
Absolutely.
Everyone's human, and like I always give the example of white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer are the most mounted animal ever.
Right.
Because there's more of them shot. Well, I've done nearly 5,000 white-tailed deer hunts.
5,000?
Myself with my hands.
Wow.
Well, the thrill of doing a white-tailed deer is gone.
Right.
So I have to find a way to remotivate myself to keep the quality up and keep doing hundreds and hundreds of those white-tailed deer. So you have to change your motivation. You have to figure out, why am I doing this? The fun part's over. I figured out how to make money, but now I've got to do 5,272 of these things, and so you change your motivation. And that turns into family, finances, retirement. Other ways of motivating yourself to get in there and do the same old thing every day, day in and day out,
right?
And stay excited about it and still enjoy it,
right? And apparently you have found a way to do that, right?
That's right.
I think if anybody took anything out of this video, that was huge right there. You have to find your why, and your why has to be deeper than, it's like the new toy out of the box. Mm-hmm. The kid gets the new toy, and the new toy's new for a week, and then the box is fun for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden it's not a new toy anymore. That's right. It goes to the shelf.
And the why changes.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. You might find your why, but that why is not going to be your why for 40 years.
Right.
It's going to change, and if you're not willing to flow with that, and like, oh wow, that doesn't work anymore, well, you got to look out there and find something else that's going to motivate you to keep that quality up and keep those customers satisfied, so you can up your prices and keep making a profit.
Absolutely.
You got to change it. You have to. If you don't, you're going to burn out and be angry at what you're doing, and you're going to end up trying to find something else and start over, and it just doesn't work that way.
Would you say that's true in every industry, honestly? You're going to have to renew your why and continue to refresh yourself. So I was just thinking as you were talking, so early in my martial arts career, my why was, I want to be the greatest first it was I want to learn martial arts. Second, it was I want to be the greatest martial artist possible. I want to be the greatest competitor. I wanted to be the biggest and the baddest. And then it became, wow, I kind of like this idea of teaching. I want to share this and make a living. So the why continued to shift. So then it became a living for my family through the joy of seeing other people get something great out of martial arts. And now it's even transitioned further. The joy has now become seeing other people take on the opportunity of teaching martial arts and learning how to build a career around what I do. So that why has constantly changed and evolved and changed and evolved, and I've kept up with that, and it's been exciting, and it's kind of the same with you. So I think that's really cool.
You have to. You really have to.
Yeah,
if you don't, you're going to end up stopping and trying to do something else.
Right.
And you can do something else, depending on your age. But if you don't change your motivation,
come on, man.
Well, I'm worried about you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that so much. So, all right, man. So, one thing, you've already kind of hit on, I think, a lot, but what is one thing you love about what you do? What is one thing you love? What stands out?
it's hard to say one particular thing, but I think for me personally, I just love being in business.
Right.
I like
awesome.
making my own living. I've got, especially the way we have it set up now, because we've got this big shop behind my house, and we're, of course, overhead's low, but I can walk in and have coffee with Beth if I want to, or
Right.
I walk in and eat lunch. But more than that, I just love being in business. I love the American way. I like to do my own thing, make my own living, be my own boss, which is a lot harder than working for someone else. But I just love being in business.
Nice.
I love having satisfied customers. I've got a great clientele after all these years. We kind of know what to expect. There's not a lot of gray areas anymore.
Right.
And just being in it so long has really made me enjoy being in business for myself and making my own living.
That is fantastic. So you're an entrepreneur at heart, and I don't know. A lot of people may not realize this, and my statistics may be off, but a few years ago, kind of reading through some stuff, about 80%. It may be a little less, but about 80% of the gross domestic product of the United States of America is built on this
Small
business.
business.
Not taxidermy, but small business,
Small
right?
business.
A mom and pop shop.
That's right.
It's not Walmart. It's not Microsoft. It's not these big corporations that everybody thinks.
Mhm.
It's small business, man. That's what we need. Entrepreneurs. We need, leaders out there running small business.
We do.
So that's awesome. So you're a busy man, hugely busy man, as everybody can tell.
He's busy.
Busy, physically busy. Why did you take time to put martial arts on your plate?
Okay, hadn't thought about that one. Again, there's a lot of different whys in that story too.
Yes, sir.
In the beginning, I had my grandson in, Sonny. He works for me full time, by the way now.
Nice.
He's a very good employee. He was going, and he was kind of losing interest in the beginning and doing the typical kid thing, and the support at home was kind of difficult because of some things going on there. But I thought, maybe if I just step out on the mat rather than just sitting there,
Right.
might help encourage him a little bit. And it did. His first day, I think he was 7. He's 23 now, I think. He saw me in uniform. He goes, "Hey, Papa, that looks good." And it's really strange because you're actually not working out with them.
Right.
But just the idea in his mind of me in the building with him,
Right.
doing the same thing he was doing and going through the same struggles he was going through, kind of helped support him
Right.
in his mind.
Right.
And it did encourage him, and he made it to recommend black belt
Yes,
and did
sir.
very well for
Yes, sir.
for himself.
Sonny was
really well.
was a fantastic student. And I want people to hear this, parents especially. Jerry, this guy right here, stepped in and he got on the mat because his grandson was on the mat, and you heard that part. But what a lot of people don't realize is there would be testing cycles that Sonny wouldn't be ready to test. And this was one of the things that initially, when I began to get to know you, kind of stood out. You would come to me and I would say, "Hey, Jerry, the test is coming up for your next belt level. You've done awesome. You have all your material." And you would look at me and you would say something like, "Chip, I appreciate that, but I'm not in a hurry. And I want to stick with Sonny and move with him. And if he's not ready yet, I'll just wait." And I always had so much unbelievable respect for that because so few people have that self-control
Sure.
and that thought process. It wasn't about you. You didn't start for you. But what's interesting, Sonny made it to his recommend black belt, kind of veered out in the teen years, and now is working for you. What's cool is you stuck with it, and I think maybe that's for you. So
Well, and that's another one of those why changes.
Right.
It started about him, and it was about him. It wasn't about me at all.
Right.
Although I did enjoy the workouts. I enjoyed the mental workouts, and it became something that I was really interested in because I enjoyed trying to be as fit as I could, and
Right.
I found with some injuries from my past that this was something that I could do.
Right.
And so my whys started changing, and it switched over from him to me.
Right.
And then eventually, I got to the point where it was something that really was beneficial to me physically and mentally, and it's just become a part of my life.
Right. All right, guys. So I have to tell you this. When he said it shifted from Sonny to him, I things you need to understand, I think about Jerry. One of the reasons I have so much respect for him is I have to tell this story. One day I walked in the dressing room whenever he was about a red belt. So, 2-3 years into, probably 3 years into his training. And I just happened to see him with a roll of duct tape, this awesome West Texas guy right here, a roll of duct tape, and he has a knee brace pulled on. It's got the metal straps, and it's got holes all in it, and it's worn out. And he's duct taping his knee brace on. And I said, Jerry, what you doing, man? He said, oh, just duct taping my brace on so I can do class. And so, okay, now understand this, like 3 years into training, I knew that he had a knee that bothered him, okay? And what I didn't know was the depth of that problem, because he would come into class and sometimes he'd say, hey, I can't jump on that, or I'm having a little trouble landing on my knee. Oh, I absolutely would modify, just keep working, and I never really thought anything about it. Well, come to find out, when he was in high school rodeoing, he had torn his ACL and never had it fixed. So this guy trained for years, 4 or 5 years, test for his black belt without an ACL on one leg, duct taping a knee brace on, and he hid that so well the whole time. We knew his knee bothered him some, but never really knew the depth of it. So, I think that's important to hear, man. That's like heart, that's dedication, that's a sign of character, man, when we don't just shut down over something. So
that really makes me think about something.
What's that?
Not to interrupt, but I really dislike talking about injuries.
Right.
That's just something that, everybody has some kind of injury. If you're past 40, 45, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And, I rodeoed for a lot of years. I got on a lot of saddle broncs, went around the country, had my professional, what they call card, the PRCA card, for 5 years.
Right.
And I had some bumps and bruises.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I'm going to mention this, I think it's important
Right.
for people out there who are middle-aged, a little older, got some bumps and grinds. I fractured a vertebrae in my neck, I fractured a vertebrae in my back, dislocated both shoulders, I broke both ankles, I fractured one ankle again out here on my stairs when I was older. I've had a lot of soft tissue injuries, blew my right knee, injured my left knee, just all during, youthful indiscretions, rodeo.
Right.
And that was one of the things that was keeping me, kind of making me wonder whether I should be on the mat or not.
Right.
Because you get to a certain age, we all have to work. We've got to work, we've got to make a living, and we've got to make sure we don't get involved in something that's going to injure us where we can't pay our bills.
Right.
And that was one of the greatest things. I lifted weights, I ran, I did all kinds of stuff for years, trying to stay in shape, went into gyms and memberships,
Right.
all the stuff you do in North America. I had treadmills, wore those things completely out.
Right.
But I've never had anything that was so easy, that was so gentle on my body, than doing Taekwondo classes.
Right.
I mean, it's all natural motion. Like running, in my opinion, as you get older, is one of the worst things you can do for your body. It
Right.
bangs your joints to just pieces, and that's one of the things that happened to me. I ran so long, I just beat my bad knee even worse, and the other one even started
Right.
having problems.
Right.
And the martial arts training is something that you can do with old injuries. And I'll always remember, and I always repeat this, the very first thing that was said to me was by Karen.
Right.
And she said, just do what you can. That's all you need to do.
Do what you can.
And one of the things that these people need to know about Chip and Glen Ann is, if you don't want to spar, don't spar. They'll find you something else to do.
Right.
When the kids are banging on each other, you can go hit a bag or something. You're not going to be pressured to do anything that's not beneficial for you.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I've stayed.
Right.
And I still stay. I can walk in there with you and you're wanting to spar, and all fired up. If I tell you I don't want to spar, you'll just smile at me, pat me on the back, and say, okay, no problem, go over and kick that bag.
Right. Absolutely.
And there's no pressure down there at all,
Right.
except to be what you can be.
To be your best, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, real quick, a couple things about you, if you don't mind me asking. How old were you when you started?
46, I think.
46.
Yeah,
So I'm 46
I don't
now.
know.
So you were starting at my age. And how old are you now?
62.
62. All right, guys. So this guy at 62 years old we have this like daily challenge: 50 push-ups, 50 squats, 20 pull-ups. He modifies his pull-ups sometimes for a shoulder thing that bothers him. 62 years old and to be doing this kind of exercise is phenomenal, man. He's phenomenal. So let me jump to here. What encouragement would you have for someone that you've already kind of hit on it some, but somebody that's kind of maybe middle aged, that's a parent that's watching their kid on the mat, or they're thinking, man, I've heard martial arts is a fun thing, good thing, whatever. What encouragement would you have for someone that's just on the fence, that's thinking about it? What would you say to them?
Well, I kind of already said it almost.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that's not beneficial about it. That's the thing. I can't think of a negative thing.
Right.
If you don't want to test, don't test.
Right.
Just come in and do class with us.
Just train.
And one of the things that I love about it, and I've said this for years too, is, at home and at work, we have all of this responsibility. We've got to make money. We've got to make a profit. We've got to make our spouses happy. We've got all this. We got to make all these decisions.
Right.
One of the things I love about going down there is I walk in there on that mat with my uniform on, and I don't have to make a single decision about anything. I can take 1 hour and just follow relax. The directions.
Right. That's
and it's one of the things I always tell some of the kids even. It's like, if you'll just, Glenn, Ann, and Chip have this thing laid out. It's a step-by-step process. If you just follow the directions, you're probably going to lose a little weight. You're going to feel better. And your mind is going to be clear, and at least you can have 1 hour of the day where you don't have to be responsible for anything but just enjoying yourself and leaving the outside world outside.
Right.
And that, to me, should bring more people in than it does.
Absolutely.
Just to have a chance to where you can not have to be in charge for an hour.
Yeah, no, and that seems so counterintuitive. Everybody wants to be the boss, wants to be in charge. But there's a time and place where it's nice to be able to kind of turn that off and just follow and pour yourself into something.
Even when you're lifting weights and stuff, you got to go in there and you go, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to do chest, these, or I'm going to do military, or you still have to make all those decisions.
Right,
and
right.
When you go in there and Karen's teaching or you're teaching or whatever, it's just like you just stand in line and say, okay, what are we going to do next? And it's, for me personally, it's a great way to get away.
Right.
To get away from
it's that mini vacation I've talked about in several videos.
Yeah.
That mini hour vacation.
1 hour. Right. Just 1 hour.
All right, man. So get your notepads out. So what's the best piece of advice you think anybody ever gave you? If you could just pick one thing, what would it be?
Okay, one statement. That's really hard.
Man, I put you on the spot.
I'm going to say there's not a statement.
Okay.
For me, it's going to be an example.
Okay.
My parents and my grandmother, you say it's choking me up a little bit.
Right.
They were the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And to this day. And as hard as I work, I could never even begin to do what they did.
Right.
And, they came from poverty, the depression, worked their way up, literally worked their way up into middle class by nothing but just, they weren't educated. High school diplomas.
Right.
And all they knew was the only way we're going to be able to have a good life for ourselves is to work every day at everything. Retirement was not in their vocabulary.
Right.
Neither one of them.
Right.
My mother was in the workforce as what they call a bookkeeper, basically an accountant, for 50-something years.
Wow.
50-something years.
Wow.
And she died at 85. My dad died at 80. And my dad was running his business 5 days before he passed.
Wow.
He was down there working. He knew he was dying.
Right.
And but he had a job.
Yes, sir.
That he had promised. I've told you this before.
Mm-hmm.
That he had promised this lady he would have this job done before Thanksgiving.
Right.
And he was down at his shop, and I went down there to see him. And it's kind of funny, but it's not. It's kind of funny because I know how tough my dad was. But he was so sick that he would work for about 10 minutes on this sofa. He was a furniture upholsterer.
Right.
Then he'd fall asleep. And he'd wake up a little bit, and he'd start working again, and he'd fall asleep.
Oh, no.
And this is a man that knew he was dying.
Right.
But he was still at
Committed
work, still working, because he promised that lady. And he didn't quite get it done, but my uncle went down and finished it up for him
Wow.
after he passed. But,
what a story, man.
But the work ethic was the most influential thing that I ever had in my life.
Right.
And to see people who knew nothing but hard work, and they didn't know any different.
Right.
and to pull themselves up out of extreme poverty,
Right.
with no welfare. There's no welfare back then.
Right.
If you didn't eat, if you didn't work, you starved.
Right.
And that was my greatest influence in life, is watching those people. I had one grandmother, and my mother and my dad, they were absolutely the hardest working people I've ever seen. My mother, when she was in her 80s, would scrub her baseboards once a week by hand.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
well,
long answer to a short question, but
you know what? We have time, man. And the thing is it was a beautiful answer to a beautiful question, and it was an answer that a lot of people need to hear. All right. Work ethic. Work is huge. We have to be willing to put in the work.
That's right.
You know, it's one thing to have an idea. It's a whole nother thing to take action on that idea. And then when the idea fails, to continue to work until you make it work. You know, you just got to do it.
So it's one of the problems. Let me interrupt you right quick. It's one of the problems that I have with the word talent.
Right.
Because people now, they look at what I do, and especially in our little small world of taxidermy conventions, it's kind of a small world
right.
compared to the rest of the world.
Sure.
But you know, they're constantly saying, "You are so talented." Well, if they could just see some of the awful stuff that I did in the beginning, you know, when I was learning.
Right.
And I do have some abilities.
Right. Absolutely.
Some abilities. My mother was an artist. She was very
right.
talented.
Right. Right. There you go. There's the word.
Really, the reason I'm where I'm at today is because I worked my tail off to get here.
Right.
It's not because that is a part of it.
Yes, sir.
But I took what I thought I had, and I've worked to get where I'm at.
Yes, sir.
And if I hadn't worked hard at it, I wouldn't be able to do what I do right now.
Awesome. And what you do right now is awesome, man. There's so much more to the story. But so, all right, Mr. Jerry, if you had one book, just one book that you could recommend anybody to read, you know,
okay.
what would that be?
I'm not a prolific reader.
Okay.
Never have been.
Sure.
Another story about an injury. Had a head injury when I was a kid, and I've always had problems focusing. I still struggle with residual effects of that.
Right.
I would have to say, of course, the Bible.
Absolutely.
You know, but I don't read the Bible as much as I should.
Right.
But How to Win Friends and Influence People.
There it is. Again.
I actually went through the Dale Carnegie course. The public speaking thing. Oh
Jerry,
yeah.
I figured it.
Yeah. I had I had a friend of mine. I think I was 18.
Right.
He goes, "Man, you got to go do this. Looks like fun." So, okay, so I signed up. It's like a 13-week thing or something. I don't know. It's a long deal, but I made it through.
Always wondered why you became so influential in my life. What the heck?
Yeah,
man?
it was fun. I had a good time. I think everybody ought to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
But it's a great book. I've read, like I say, I'm not a prolific reader. I don't read a whole lot of books. I like educational stuff.
Yes,
I'm not
sir.
much into novels and that
Right.
sort of thing. But I think I read that book like 3 times.
Nice.
There are so many practical principles you can use in there.
Right.
You know, learning how to, it's really helped me in my business because I have a lot of people who are very well heeled. You know,
Right.
they're
Yes,
upper
sir.
income people, and you need to be comfortable walk in a room with a bunch of millionaires and
Right.
act like you're one of them. And,
Absolutely.
And that book helped me
To learn.
really relate to all levels of personalities and customers' income levels. Just learning the techniques on how to communicate.
Right. Well, outside of techniques, I would say one of the most influential things on my end in that realm of walking into that room full of millionaires is my mom groomed into me from, man, the day I can remember this. Respect everyone, but don't grovel to anyone, because it doesn't matter how many zeros they have in their bank account. And those were her words. Because every morning that person gets up just like you and puts their pants on one leg at a time. And that's a powerful thing. Now, it didn't teach me any techniques for interaction, but it was very grounding in knowing that there are people just like me, you know what I mean? And not to be...
They have the same worries,
right?
they have the same problems.
Absolutely.
They worry about their kids,
Absolutely.
they worry about their money.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're
All the
they're
same
the
things,
same.
right?
It's just at a different level.
Awesome.
You know?
Well, man, this has been a packed video, guys. You're probably gonna go back and re-listen, take some notes, write it down. I love you, man.
Barely made
Because
it.
we barely made it.
Barely made it.
Man, I love you, man.
Well, it's
And
been great. I really appreciate it.
What the heck? What is this, a gator paw? All right, guys. Thank you very much. my director. What did I miss? All right. So thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you guys. Like our stuff and follow. This is Huffaker Taxidermy. If you're ever interested, Taxidermy Studios, Huffaker Taxidermy Studios. The guy's truly world class. It's funny. I see him drive down the street sometimes with like a cheetah in the back of his pickup, and I'm like, hey, there goes Jerry, right? So good stuff. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in. Awesome.